Hey, look who's back, guys. Back from the West Coast. I was out in California last week and I was freezing, man. I went out there. I thought I was going to go out there and hit the beach, get some sunshine. It was like 50 degrees, cloudy, sometimes rainy, and then it was like 90 degrees here in New York. So I had the whole thing backwards, man. I had the whole thing backwards. I'm having no luck lately, what can I tell you? Anyway, here we are, folks. It's tax week, tax day today, tax day tomorrow, tax day the next day. Everybody paying their taxes. We already see now that the federal government's financial balance has flipped into a surplus this month. It happened on Friday. We're now 14 billion surplus. And that's probably much higher today. It's going to go much higher. Remember last year, the total drain was 430 billion. Took a long time to recover that. And we got a lot of bumps along the road right now. And those bumps, primarily, not just this tax drain. If it was simply the tax drain, I wouldn't be that worried about it. Because, you know, these are things that happen routinely. We get them every quarter or 5 times a year or whatever, and the money gets spent back out. It takes a little bit of time for the drained funds to get redeployed back into the economy. And of course, I've said this many times, they don't get redeployed directly back to each of us individually, but they get put back into the swimming pool, into the economy, recirculated around, and the government runs deficits, so the net addition to the financial balances of the economy continue to rise. But we have the debt ceiling situation. I think Kevin McCarthy, House Speaker, was down at the New York Stock Exchange today telling everybody how we have to cut spending. That's the big thing. And of course, the White House says, well, we have to raise taxes on the rich people and corporations. You have to understand one thing from a fiscal point of view. I remember having this argument one time with a professor, some economics professor, when I was on Fox News, when I made the statement that fiscally, you know, fiscally tax increases are the same thing as spending cuts, and vice versa. Spending cuts are the same thing as tax increases. They just affect a different income cohort. And also, like, spending increases are the same thing as tax cuts, and tax cuts are the same thing as spending increases. Again, it's just, it affects a different income cohort, and so it's just a redistribution of income. And the guy was like, what are you talking about? Well, you don't know what you're talking about. Of course it is. Of course it is. They're exactly the same thing, equal but opposite. And you know, so if we're talking about a situation here where the resolution to the debt ceiling is going to come down to the Republicans demanding spending cuts, and I think McCarthy was talking about spending cuts, of course, like in education, in environment, and there were some other things, you know, probably including social programs, whatever. What's funny is Congress just passed a record defense bill. There's never any problem with that. Like, it's, where's the money for that coming from? No, we got that. You need $890 billion. That's bipartisan. Both parties go for that, but then the cuts come down on everybody else. The thing that's going to be tricky here, well, number one, if the debt ceiling is going to get raised at all, but I really doubt they're going to go into a default type situation. By the way, I forgot to look today. I should have looked today, but as of Friday, we had something like 99 billion left in the Treasury General account. The lowest I ever saw it got was during the Mnuchin days, when was his name, Steve Mnuchin, was Trump's Treasury Secretary. It got down to like 42 billion. That was in December 2021. It was at the same time when, you know, again, we were having this ridiculous, I hate talking about this because it's just like, it's the sabotage of a great nation for complete stupidity and what they believe is political leverage. And it's ridiculous. It makes us a laughing stock. But anyway, it is what it is. What can I tell you? I mean, I do think in the end, it's the same game of brinkmanship, and it's going to go to the 11th hour, and they're going to come up with something where both sides can say, hey, we got what we wanted. So we're probably looking at a fiscal situation. Now let me separate this out. We're probably looking at a fiscal situation that might be a little bit less robust on the discretionary spending side. All right, and it's important that I include that qualification, because on the non-discretionary spending side, which is, of course, Social Security, Medicare, stuff like that, and the biggie now, what's the biggie? That's the interest payments. And it's funny because we see all this commentary about how, the government's got to pay so much interest, and the cost to the government, it's always framed like that. It's always framed like that. It's never framed like, hey, savers are seeing income boosts that they haven't seen since the early 1980s. Pension funds are getting replenished. State, coffers are getting replenished. Institutional fund, all this kind of stuff. Pension funds, I mentioned, getting replenished. There's never that aspect that is presented out there. It's always presented as a cost to the government. It's no more a cost to the government than Congress, saying, okay, we're going to raise the defense bill by another 90 or 100 billion, or we're going to give Ukraine 130 billion, and the just tells the Fed, which is the government's bank, okay, now just credit that account, and that's where the money comes from. So, this is the interesting part, because we could have a situation of slower or a cutback in certain areas of discretionary spending, but at the same time, don't forget, folks, we're just 1 year into this whole Fed rate increase thing. They started in March, so we're 13 months in. They started in March 2022. They're going to do another rate hike in May in 16 days. They go up to 5.25%. And so all of these government maturities, as they mature, and you got your short-term ones, your 2-year, then your 5-year, then your 10-year, then your 30-year. As these things mature, they're all going to be reissued with higher coupons. In other words, higher rates attached. So this, it's like a rate, it's like an interest income transfer tsunami that is going on. So I'm not that worried about the debt ceiling. I am worried if we go into a hard debt ceiling and we force ourselves to do this stupid thing of some kind of self-imposed austerity for what? I don't know, to be like the laughing stock of the world. That would not be good. But again, I've been saying this, I still don't think that's going to happen. The Atlanta Fed still has Q1 GDP. By the way, did you see last week? I wasn't able to make any videos. That 3-hour time, folks. I'm on an East Coast time. I'm on East Coast time. And I was waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning and going to do my workouts, and even that, I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning here in the East Coast. If I really wanted to be equal, I would have to wake up at 1 o'clock. But I was staying with my son in Los Angeles, and They got my little granddaughter, and so she's up and running around, and I was hardly getting any sleep, and I was exhausted, man. I was exhausted. And so I just couldn't do. And I think if you saw me do a video last week, you would be like, what's wrong with Mike? Like, I was in a hoodie, I was in a sweatshirt, I was in a bomber jacket. It was freezing out there, man. It was freezing. And over here, I'm looking at the weather, like 90 degrees. Everybody's out in the park having a great time. Oh man, I was so frustrated. Anyway, that time difference was just killing me. It was exhausting me. Coming home on the plane on Saturday, man, I don't know, I came down with something. I was shaking uncontrollably, like the whole entire time, that 6-hour flight. I was just like, I could not get warm. And I had my sweatshirt, my hoodie, my t-shirt, my jacket. I had my hands in my pocket. I kept asking the stewardess for tea. I mean, I was shaking uncontrollably. I came down with something, but I'm okay now. But anyway, so that's what it looks like. Oh yeah, what I was going to say was last week, man, JP Morgan blowout earnings. No kidding, because now you're starting to see the impact of the Fed's interest rate payments to the big banks. And, you know, it's like I saw that headline today, you know, make the bigger, the too big to fail even too bigger to fail, which is exactly what's happening, because the vast majority of reserves, you know, they're hoarded at the large banks like JP Morgan, Citi, Wells, and Bank of America, and especially JP Morgan. And they just had blowout earnings, man. And that's just like from the Fed, you know, checks, here you go. Some of that should be for us. I think some of that should be for us, but hey, I'm not the one that makes the rules, but you could see why there's like a bifurcation in the banking sector now. And I feel bad for these small banks, because these small regional banks, and you know, I've been promoting banks now for a while, and they're good. I mean, they lend in their communities. They lend in communities. The banks that I've invested in lend in communities and regions of the country that have been showing really, really good growth. And they're necessary. They're necessary. But the big banks are the ones that are, you know, going to get the largesse of the Fed primarily. And so as an investor, I think you got to be more concentrated there. But let me just sum this up, because I think I painted kind of an optimistic picture. It is tax drain season. Okay, so this rally we had today, nice rally. I was very appreciative of it, but I don't think it's going to last. I think we're going to see a period of volatility now as we get this drain. This drain is going to, you know, be significant. We go through it every year, and it'll probably last well into May. And, you know, you'll have another hopefully you'll have another buying opportunity in the stock market if they could figure out this debt ceiling thing. But I would not get too enthusiastic about the rally today, just because, you know, this is the big tax drain season. So anyway, and by the way, that also makes me bullish on the dollar. Tax drain, basically sucking dollars out of the system. So, you know, I think at least over the period that the drain is occurring, we could see some dollar rally. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. I'm back. I am back to New York. Sometimes I like coming back. It's like, it's my hometown. What can I tell you? It's a crazy place. It's like I got a hate-love relationship with New York. I've been here all my life. I hate it. But when I come back, I like it. I don't know if I love it, but I like it. So that's it for today. See you guys tomorrow. I missed you guys. I missed all you guys. Some of you were asking about me. I'm fine. Don't worry. Yeah, there you go. All right, see you tomorrow. Bye.